Hi, everybody. My name's Carrie. I have a podcast called Mother Life, which is all about career and parenting and how we somehow balance the two and how they inform each other. So come check us out. Today's our 1 year anniversary, actually. So I'm very happy to be celebrating with all of you on behalf of Auggie. We have a really fun discussion today, which, as you can tell, is already really relevant. That transition from school or from camp back to school, from summer back to school, and the village required to make that transition happen in a way that is as copacetic as possible for everybody involved. And like I said, I am personally looking forward to learning from our experts today because we have three people who know what it means to build a village and to help other people build a village. So I'm going to ask our participants, Kate, I'll start with you, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and your organization, and we'll make the rounds.
Absolutely. So I'm Kate Georgalas. I'm the Director of Partnerships for Hello Nanny. We are a nationwide agency that supports families looking for all different types of care, whether it's nannies, family assistants, household managers, and we have a broad spectrum of services that we offer. So whether families are navigating the search for a caretaker on their own, if they're looking for someone part-time, full-time, we offer everything from just basic recruitment of high quality candidates all the way up to our white glove concierge service. So it's really a great resource when you're navigating, figuring out, what support you need for your family. And I am based in New York currently. I am a mom of two. I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. So we are living in the limbo of end of camp and start of school next week, and looking forward to that.
Great. Thanks, Kate. Kelly, you want to go
Sure.
next?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kelly Hubbell. I'm the founder of Sage Haus. At Sage Haus, we help busy families find and hire house managers and family assistants. So really, we're specialized more in that holistic, versatile role of someone who can provide childcare if needed, be a second pair of hands around your home, do household management, pet care, all of those things. And this business is really born from my own experience as a overwhelmed mom of three. So I've got a 6, 4, and 2-year-old now. We live just outside of Portland, Oregon, in Lake Oswego. My husband is a small business owner too, travels a lot for work. And speaking of villages, we essentially live very far from family and away from a village. And so for us, having support by way of, again, like holistic, versatile help in our home was so life-changing for me and my family that I basically did a big pivot from software sales career to helping other families find this kind of support in their home. So I'm excited to have the conversation here today.
Amazing. Thank you. And Jackie.
Hi, I'm Jackie Coker, and I'm the growth manager at Faye. And what we do is we connect busy parents with peers in their community, that hyper organized mom, the one that you text about when is soccer sign up, or am I too late for, XYZ. They are, such a strong value in our communities, and they do this work for free. And so what we wanted to do is start bringing together parents who are overwhelmed and these women who have this skill set, and matching them together and saying, hey, your skill has value and it has worth, and there are parents that are willing to pay you for your time to do this for you, for them. And so that's kind of the concept of Faye. I live in Dallas. This is where we piloted the service. And so we've been in Dallas for over 2.5 years now, and now are across the country. So it's been really fun to meet all these families and advisors from all over the world and learn about different needs in different areas of the country, which is why we think that local knowledge is so important. I've learned that in the East Coast, there's, oil deliveries, which I had never heard about, to heat your homes. That was a new concept to me.
Yeah.
And so it just drives home the point of how important it is to have a local mom who's like, I totally get it. Oil plans are such a pain. And I'm over here Googling, how does oil get delivered to your house? But personally, I have 2 kids, a daughter who's 5, just started kindergarten last week, and then a son he turned 8 on Friday, started 2nd grade last Wednesday. So that was my first week of school. First day, Wednesday, son's birthday Friday, son's birthday party Saturday. So we launched right in. So it was a week.
Look at you, and your hair is brushed and you look pretty clean. I think
I
that's
made
very
it.
impressive.
But now I have a full week of school, so we're back to this.
Well done, you.
Maybe not like this.
Thank you guys so much. And before we go any further, just to say that this event is being recorded so that people can listen back, find these resources, tap in if they weren't able to make it today. If you do have questions, please put them in the Zoom chat at any time. I'll keep an eye out, and if relevant, I'll try and call it out in the moment, but we'll also have time for questions at the end. I personally am the disorganized mom who relies on the type A super organized mom. And I basically could personally benefit from everything all of you do. So I appreciate that you are out there doing this work. And it does raise the question about, what does a village look like? On the pod with my friends, I'm constantly talking about if I didn't have the village I created for myself, I don't know if I would be married. Like it would create so much tension in our relationship. And we all talk about the invisible labor and the mental load to not have those people. But obviously, it's a really complicated thing when you bring people into the folds that aren't family. But like, I don't have the grandparent type support who's the Mary Poppins who's going to show up. So we've got to pay for the help. And that's across the board, everything from a housekeeper, house manager to, in our case, an au pair, to messaging my poor friend Emily constantly. So for you guys, when you think about what a village looks like, what does it mean to you? And both in terms of personally and kind of how you've developed that definition for your communities over time. And just feel free to jump in. I'll try and bounce around.
I can jump in. I will talk a little bit. So I mentioned before, I'm in a very similar situation where like we don't have grandparents close by. We didn't have a support system or village aside from like really close friends, but those friends are also in this same season of life, which is really intense with little kids. And so for me personally, being like a very type A mom, right? Like I went into motherhood and parenthood with a lot of like gusto, like I'm going to be a super mom. Like I'm going to do it all. I'm going to go back to work after X amount of time and like still do all the things and meal prep on Sundays and whatever. And I was honestly able to hold on to that with one kid. But then once we had our second, the wheels came off the bus for me personally and in my household. So it was like, and again, like you mentioned, I felt like slowly the resentment was building in my household too, just because of that mental load and the like invisible labor that I was doing and I was taking on for our family. And by the way, like I think that, and this is like my opinion, I tell people this every day. I'm like, even when you have two well-intentioned, highly functioning parents in a relationship, like there still aren't enough hours in the day.
The math does not math
to do it all. Like it doesn't math. Yeah. It like doesn't make, so it's like I realized pretty soon, like, oh my gosh, I'm going down this path of like burnout. And by the way, like I could see like my 5 years in the future of like being fully like burnt out. And I was like, that is not what I want to be. And so what we did and this is how we built our village was basically I made a big list of all the things I was doing to manage my household. I showed it to my husband. He was like, this looks like a job description. And I was like, well, that's because it is a job. And like there is value in this role that I'm doing for our family. And so we need to find the support from someone. So anyway, like fast forward in my story of finding our villages. I posted a role. I looked for 2 months. It took me a long time to find the right fit for my family, but we found someone. We call her a house manager because she helps me manage my household and she's basically a clone of me. So anything I do for my family, she helped me do. And that was 4.5 years ago. And it literally changed my marriage, to your point, changed my connection with my kids and my ability to be present with them. And it now, like, as I'm looking into this, like my ability to start Sage Haus as like a side hustle in my corporate job and like grow this business, like I could not do it without the support in our household. And I'll just say one more thing about that. Like, I think there are a lot of ways that we can build a village. So like, and that's like, you're looking at these like amazing women on this call who are like, can offer you all of these different solutions. And you just have to figure out like what works for your family, like what combination of virtual assistant or nanny or childcare or like household management works for you. And every family is a little bit different, but like the bottom line is you deserve more support and you cannot afford, honestly, not to have that support in your home. So
100%. I could not agree more. So much of that, Kelly and I have talked about too, just in like her story, our founder's story. So much of Stephanie's, our founder's story, it aligns with that, where she was like leaning into super mom and like wanted to really, wanted her and her husband to really own everything together and be those equitable partners. And he's also a small business owner, travels a lot, and she was very resistant initially to hiring help. And her and her husband were actually arguing in the pediatrician's office. And the pediatrician came in and she was like, wait a minute, what's happening? Your husband is offering to hire help and you're saying no? Let's talk about this. And she ended up hiring a mother's helper. And it just radically shifted her mental health and physical health and her ability to show up as a mom and a partner. And it changed her perspective so dramatically that she launched her business because she wanted more people to feel less shame around asking for the support that we all need. This was with her second child, second marriage, that she entered very intentionally with, like, she felt like she was a single mom in her last marriage. She wanted to really be more equitable about how they divided the responsibilities, but they recognized, again, as Kelly said, like even with two equitable, forward-thinking partners, there's not enough hours in the day, and during certain dynamics, you need additional support. And she had, was also navigating postpartum depression in that period as well. So just there's all of these things that we might be going through in different seasons of parenthood. And one of the things I'm really excited about, we actually have a new resource coming out in September that Sage Haus and Faye also contributed to, that is really all about how to navigate your childcare needs through every season. Because the reality is, I think one of the things that really caught me off guard, I feel like I read all the books about the baby, and the second time around, I read more about the postpartum because that caught me by total surprise the first time. But the thing that really hit me like a bus was childcare. Like, no one gave me a primer. There was no one, like, all of it felt so overwhelming. And I worked in industries where, like, when you hire someone, you have a lawyer, you have a recruiter, you have a panel of people interviewing that person. And all of a sudden, little old me navigating postpartum anxiety is supposed to know how to hire someone who's going to come into my house. And, you're expected to know all of these things. And I just feel like, a lot of parents assume once you pick the childcare that you want, one and done. Okay, I'm going to put my kid in preschool. We're set. We found a great childcare center, or we have a nanny. But then your kid shifts into a new season. Now I have one in preschool and one in elementary, and our needs are totally different. And having a knowledge of what are my options? What does an au pair look like? What does a house manager look like? A family assistant? What if I'm going to be downshifting my hours and now I'm a fractional worker, but I still need some support? What types of options should I consider? So that's what the guide really covers, is like what to know about all the options that are out there. So as you're cobbling together, if you have access to a grandparent, if you have access to a nanny, part-time, full-time, how to think about like what actually works for your family's needs as they evolve through different seasons. And the last thing I'll say is, on the flip side of Kelly's scenario, the first 5 years of my daughter's life, my mom and dad lived on the same street as us, which was amazing in some ways. But mom, hope you're not listening to this, also terrible in many ways. And there are things that, even if you have access to a village, one, it's unpaid labor support from family that like is being undervalued in so many ways. That's a much longer and bigger conversation. But two, there are a lot of stresses that come from having family in your home, not being aligned about how you want things done when it comes to your kids, boundaries, all different types of things that can contribute to challenges. So sometimes, even if you have family, outsourcing help can be a really wonderful gift to yourself and your family.
What, you mean your parents didn't like whatever Excel spreadsheet you sent them? Or my mom, like anytime she does come and babysit, she's just like, you can just tell she's nervous about whatever fucking thing I'm gonna tell her. Like there, because I want my kids to eat at 5:30. I want them to be upstairs at 6:30 getting ready for bed. And grandma's rules are grandma's rules. And she didn't like that very much either. So I
My mom
appreciate
thought I was insane because I did oh my gosh, I forgot the name of the program, but basically a sleep program.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the concept is if they're sleeping for too long in their nap, you wake them up so that they'll actually sleep through the night.
Yeah.
Mom thought I was absolutely insane because I was like, well, I've got to go wake up the baby. And she's like, why would you wake up the baby? I'm like,
Yeah.
it's the plan. But it worked out. He was sleeping well. So
Exactly. In our day, we did it this way and everybody was fine.
I
It's like,
know.
I always tell parents like in those scenarios, I'm like, you get what you pay for.
yes,
So
well said.
is it free?
Yeah.
It actually comes
Uh,
with quite a price.
Yeah, exactly.
Jackie, before I get to I have a follow-up question for you guys. Is there anything you wanted to add in terms of how you view the village?
Yes, I think the thing that I mean, this isn't necessarily just Faye only, but I think friends are so important.
Yeah.
We happened to be, we used to chase my husband's job, so we were in Tulsa, Oklahoma when the COVID hit, and we had a 4-month-old and a 2.5-year-old, and we hadn't made close friendships yet. And so then when everything was shut down, it was very lonely. And we kind of went through this, why are we in Tulsa? We have no
Right.
friends and family. Like, what are we doing? And so we went through this whole, where do we actually want our kids to live? My husband has extended family in the Dallas area. So, but that combined with the fact that we also had a lot of friends in the central Dallas area where we live was why we came back. And just the resource of parents who have been through the elementary school you're in and can give advice. Just a friend that has known you for 15 years that you can meet up with and you just immediately feel that comfort level. And someone who can help pick up your kids because something blew up at work and like, oh my gosh, and can you bring my son home from school today? That is such a valuable resource that I think is hard because I've experienced when you don't have it. And so
Yeah.
I really value the village of friendship as well.
No, well said. And that's kind of the follow-up question was that intangible piece, the emotional support piece of the village. Because similar to you, I have 2 kids. One's almost 5. He was born September 2020. So he was a COVID baby. And in that pregnancy, literally nobody even saw me pregnant. I like went in without a baby, came out with a baby. It was a very strange experience, but it also meant in those early days, like I couldn't observe other moms breastfeeding their kids. I didn't have access to a lactation consultant. I didn't have my friends around to be like, you don't seem like you're okay. Are you okay? Like, because
Yeah.
nobody's watching you and nobody's seeing you. And I think that part of the village, we always talk about like, oh, it takes a village to raise a kid. But we don't say like it also takes a village to take care of a mom and a parent in general. I mean, men are famously bad at talking to each other about their stuff. But I think women, as we've kind of gone a little bit more insular over time, like yes, we can see people's Instagram shit, but it's not the same thing as looking someone in the eye and be like, hey, I'm having a tough time.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention this in the intros because mom brain still so deep within me. But outside of my work for Hello Nanny, I actually am also a certified perinatal behavioral health coach for a company called Family Well Health. And what they do is they embed with OBGYN clinics so that if you're, when you go to your OB after you have your baby, you have your
Yeah.
check-in appointment 6 weeks after. It's a 5 to 15-minute conversation that you
You mean
have.
so you can go run home and have sex with your husband?
Right, right. But there's no support outside of that. And so basically, I see pregnant and postpartum patients virtually, and they have access to me as a perinatal coach throughout pregnancy. If they're showing any signs of anxiety, depression, stress, we offer support on a weekly basis to help provide them with different coping tools, a safe space to talk about all of the things that shift when you become a mother, your identity shift, returning to work, postpartum mood and anxiety disorders that can happen, lactation consultant referrals, sleep consultant referrals, relationship dynamic changes with your partner, all these things that I wish I had had when I was postpartum. But I think that, you know, outside of the formal village, having those friendships, whether they're parents or not, having the people that
Yeah.
knew before I was a mom was fundamental to my sanity and my identity evolution in becoming a mom and remembering I'm more than a mom. So I think that's an essential part of the village. Absolutely.
So, so true. I wanted to ask you guys about the guilt question because I imagine you all have clients who come to you who know they need the help, but, and we talked a little bit about this, just being at odds with knowing you need the help and feeling okay with getting it. Because we're all living in these unrealistic standards. I mean, Kelly, you were on the road to burnout yourself trying to do it all at one time. What do you say to these clients who you can tell are not sure, aren't comfortable? How do you kind of tell them that this is fine? This is,
Yeah.
you get it.
I see this come up a lot when it comes to planning a child's birthday party. There is a lot of mom guilt that, like, this is my child's birthday party. I have to handle all of it. And so when I'm talking to clients about that, I can say, you are driving this birthday party. If you want a Paw Patrol theme with a bounce house, like, that is still the party that you're building. But do you need to spend the time researching the most, the best bounce house for the price? And do you need to research all of the Paw Patrol, options of decorations and finding the Paw Patrol cake? And so it can really be at your directive, but you don't have to spend the man hours doing that research because your child's not, that doesn't make you a better mother necessarily. Like, could that you saw 15 different Paw Patrol decoration options. And so I think just letting them know that they're still in the driver's seat, they're still in control, but having that support for time that isn't necessary, that really doesn't bring overall value to your child's experience, it's okay to let that go.
And Kelly, you mentioned that like you getting this help allowed you to be more present with your kids.
Yeah.
Is that sort of like the corollary argument then?
Yeah, I think I actually I love your question because I think if you more broadly scope that, there is a massive barrier still today around guilt and shame for accepting any type of help.
Yeah.
And like there is really like no one person to blame for that, right? Like this is a societal and cultural expectation that has been put on women primarily for centuries. Like this is like been a really long time coming. And so like and by the way, like everyone is on their own personal journey of overcoming that. And like for different moms and parents that I work with, like they get to different points. Like they, maybe it's their pediatrician, to Kate's point, who comes in is like, time out, what's happening here, right? Or it's like you finally feel like you have the permission. And I think like just having conversations like this, like normalizing it, finally moms are saying like, I'm not doing it all. And like, I don't even want to pretend like I'm doing it all. Like, I'm here to be like, I literally, when I found more support in our home, I was like, I want to shout this from the mountaintops. I got to tell every mom I cracked the code. I'm like,
Yeah.
it turns out like you've got to have support. And like, there's, like if you can overcome this whole, like do it all super mom thing, like the world opens up to you. And so I think everyone's on their own journey with that. I think normalizing it, talking about it, is like breaking the cycle. And like, we are just like being cycle breakers right now. And the more moms hear this message that it's okay, the more
Yeah.
they're going to be open to accepting help.
I think it also is about helping them understand that, I think sometimes people assume that the help only that someone else is raising your child when you're outsourcing the help. You can tailor the help and what that help looks like to what you want your family support system to look like. So for example, Stephanie, our founder today, does not need as much childcare support. She shifted several years ago to a family assistant who works for their family for 20 hours a week so that Stephanie can do pick up and drop off and be there for karate lessons and not have to meal prep. and not have to run errands. You know, there's other things logistically weighing on all of us as adults for the house to run, for the childcare components, you know, prepping for school, prepping for you know, daycare if they're younger, that is far less meaningful to some of us. The things that we value the time doing the most are different from person to person. So figuring out like what are the things that are just like a headache for, like, do I feel joyful doing laundry? Do I want someone else to do that so that I can not be thinking about it at bedtime, be more present with my kids at bedtime, be more present with my partner, not running through the to-do list of everything I have to do this next day or this next week. So just sort of understanding and feeling encouraged to think outside of, you know, the parameters they might have initially come into the conversation with.
Now, Kate, this is the mind fuck for me about specifically around like childcare support, like having somebody. So we have the most incredible au pair, and we went from, you know, just like preschool. When they're preschool, for some reason, there isn't that like emotional thing of like, oh, they're spending more time with somebody that's not me, because it's like a school group sort of environment. It feels different. Then you have somebody in your home and you're upstairs. This is about me, guys. I'm typing, I'm working, whatever. And I know that my daughter's downstairs having an absolute blast with our au pair. I hear them laughing. I hear them cuddling. I hear them having fun. And sometimes it's really hard to not be jealous because I'm like, I want to be down there having the cuddles and the laughs too. But I also know that I really want her here for the help. It's a very confusing thing. And it's sort of like a cousin to the guilt. Because it's like, I know I need the help, but also I'm jealous sometimes of the help that I'm getting. Anybody else? Is that just me?
I'm so glad that you said that, because I think that that's true, and we should normalize that more as well. Both things can absolutely be true at the same time, that you can hate your work, you can love your work, and still feel the same way about being drawn and wanting to be there in that moment, but also recognize that if I was the full-time care, that wouldn't be the best fit for me either, or the child or children scenario. But you can still, like, we are multifaceted as humans. So of course, you know, you hear that you want to be a part of it, but her being there is also opening up opportunities for you to have those moments in different parts of your day. And
yes, you're right. You're totally right.
Yeah, I think it's just like finding that balance, right? And that is the beauty of having support like an au pair, and being able to like pick and choose, when do you want to do stuff? When do you like having, for a lot of families, like, you know, we support, it's having someone part-time and realizing like that person part-time can come in and like just take on the things that day that need to get done, so that when you're off the clock, so when you're done working upstairs, you can like fully dive into whatever you like, hanging out with your kid, instead of, to Kate's point, right, is like the multitasking of like, okay, now I'm done working. Now I've got to do all the other stuff because, you know, yes, my child is taken care of, but like, what about all this other stuff we have going on, right? So it's like, you know, I think I'm hearing more and more from families, like, I want to be spending time with my kids, even like, you know, those moms who are like essentially working in their home, like managing kids, taking care of kids 24/7. Like, they're like, I want to be spending the time, but it's not realistic for me to also be doing the grocery shopping, planning all the meals, running the errands, getting the birthday party gift, like all those things. And so, yeah, so I love that, like, we're able to now like rethink, oh, how do I want to structure my day, my life, basically.
Well, and for the queen, Kelly, for you as the queen of the job description and writing one and drafting one and helping people, and Jackie and Kate, I want your take as well. Like, how can families who are starting to dip their toe into this idea, maybe for the first time, or maybe they're at a juncture where they realize their old arrangement isn't working for them anymore, what advice do you give to like, what's that first brain dump on how you start to figure out what your needs are?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked, and I'll drop a link in the chat here in a second. But like we have a free quiz, for example, that you can take on our website, that like by taking the quiz, you get tailored basically like recommendations for you and your family, and we'll give you a list of all of the things that you can think through 100+ things that you could think through of like, what are some of the things you might want off your plate? And just starting that process of like, okay, what are like 3 to 5 things I could take off my plate this week? And how would I translate those into how many hours I'm spending is like a light bulb moment. It's like really 8 to 10 hours a week can get you back so much time and energy and presence. And it can be like a really affordable way to get those things off your plate. So yeah, I would say I'll drop the link here, but then yeah, just like it's almost like reverse prioritizing things. It's like, what are the things I want off my plate to deprioritize? That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Totally. We got a really good question before I go to you guys. I don't want to lose this thread because I think it's an important question and it's one that I think we've all had at some point or another. The question is about trust and trusting somebody to care for your child. And I kind of think it's probably a combination of your 3 expertises that come together on this. But any perspective on like, how do you get that feeling that somebody's a good fit to care for your child, especially when they're at that age before they can talk and express whether or not they feel comfortable around this person? Beyond just an interview, what are things that somebody can do to feel more comfortable trusting somebody caring for their child?
I noticed that she also said needing a mental break.
Yes.
Sometimes that doesn't have to be out of the house, though. If you're not comfortable yet leaving the house, maybe you have care come into the home and you just go take a long bath or work out or, do the gardening. So you're not doing the child care, but you're right there. And maybe that can be a first step into trusting this new person and testing them out and see how they react. So I remember having that fear, and I was working from home at that time. So it was really helpful to be in the same home and like know that I could still, at that time breastfeed and on, when it was time to feed and still be a part of it.
It's a really good point. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think this is so so true for so many moms. I know, I had part-time nannies initially. I did have access to my mom, so it was great to have someone I felt comfortable leaving my daughter with initially, but the nanny, that was a big adjustment for me, and this was well before I was part of the Hello Nanny world. So I did all of the vetting, the hiring, the figuring of it out on my own. And um the first person we hired was a wonderful person, not the right fit for what I needed. And I think that feeling that trust and also finding the right fit, a couple of things are really important to us. One, I think always always making sure that you have a work trial. So whether that person does an afternoon with you, several days with you, making sure that you can see them and experience them with your child when you're home. Maybe you're in another room and you're in and out. But just giving yourself time to see how your child reacts and plays with them or how they feel. There's so much advantage to our children developing these secure relationships with other adults, whether it's family, friends, teachers in the future, a nanny, an au pair. There's benefits for the kids in addition to our own mental health. But I think it takes time and baby steps. For me, I wanted to have cameras. We had security cameras in the home that the nanny knew about. But it wasn't just like a safety thing for me. I missed my daughter when I was at work and I would hop on the camera and check out what they were doing sometimes during the day. And that's really helpful as well. But I think the big one is partnering with an agency, whether you're doing concierge or using some of our DIY tools. You're able to hire with the confidence that those candidates have been pre-screened, that you can work with someone who knows how to do background checks, that can help you navigate the right questions to ask, how to do a reference check with another family, how to validate certifications that they may say they have, so that you can know when you're confidently hiring someone versus when we're left to our own devices. So many of us are going to Facebook groups, friends, colleagues, and an abundance of marketplaces that offer, whether it's care.com, Sitter City, all of them can have quality candidates, but the vetting is different from site to site. So it's the sort of onus is on the parent to then do that legwork and sort of vet that person if they don't work alongside someone. So I think that would have helped a lot too for me personally to just have that support.
Now, let's talk a little bit about I am classically a people pleaser. I don't like to have uncomfortable conversations. I've managed people before. I'm thrilled that I don't have to do that now, except for the people who work in my home. And I hate it. I hate that aspect of it. The difficult conversations, the setting expectations, the check-ins, the whatever, asking somebody to do something differently, like makes me sweaty. So, can you guys give me sort of how do we set ourselves up for success if we either hate managing people or haven't had a lot of experience doing it? How do you set up that relationship for success so that maybe it's a little bit less sweaty?
Yeah, I can jump in here because I think this is a really good point you touched on. I think half the battle is finding the right fit for your family. And so I think, to Kate's point, like working with a professional who can help you find the right person, the right fit with the right certifications and personality and characteristic traits and experience and all of those things is like half of it. And then the other half is like, okay, we found this like modern Mary Poppins unicorn, but now how do I make sure that they are actually going to like be successful in the role and like take mental load off of my plate and like anticipate my family's needs and then there's the management like fear of like, okay, how am I going to like continue to manage these people, make sure they're happy, because when they're happy we're happy, right? So it's like so one of the things Sage House has done in working with families for over 2 years now is sort of consolidated all of that tribal knowledge into what we call home systems. So developing systems around your home, which is like the way you can think about that is like basically doing a brain dump. We provide a templated playbook. We call it our home systems playbook, where you brain dump, like, this is how our family runs. This is how our household runs, from how we do our meal planning and meal prep. Like, what is the recipe box of things that we go to for our family? What's the laundry schedule for the week? Like, what's the pet care and plant care plan? Like, basically putting together weekly, monthly, seasonal like schedules and checklists for like, this is how our household runs. These are the expectations. This is how we wash certain things in our laundry. Like, right, all of those little details, getting that out of your brain and into a playbook that you can then say to your support person, this is how we run our home. And like, can you imagine how delighted they are? Because they're like, I just want to get it right, right? Like, I just want to do my job really well. And so, so I think it's in home systems. And then as a part of like our home systems, for example, we provide scripts for like feedback, those weird, awkward conversations. Like,
Worst.
how do we give feedback? How do we accept feedback? How do we set up time and space to make sure that feedback is going both ways here to ensure that we are like really, like participating in this relationship that we have with our care team. So I think it's in systems, it's in like feedback loops, and it's just in like really getting super holistic around like our family system.
Something
I would,
to,
oh,
oh,
good.
okay. I was gonna say something that's a bit different about Faye is it's set up to be a fractional family assistant. So you aren't going to be having just this, it is your one-on-one relationship with your advisor, but it's not full time. They're not coming into your home. So how do you, we didn't want people to have to worry about how do I set someone up to know our family when we're only working together 4 hours a month, 8 hours a month. And so what we thought was really important with that is that you're paired with a peer. So it makes it a lot easier for you to gain that trust very quickly. There are working professionals who live in your, and primarily moms who live in your neighborhood in your city. And so it makes it so that once you start talking together and, oh, I shop at that toy store too, I totally know they have free gift wrap. Did you know that? Oh, I didn't know that. And it makes it so that there's that trust level built. So it makes it feel like you don't have to manage them as much because you're passing the work off to what seems like a work colleague or a very highly organized friend, because we knew that you aren't going to have as much setup time like you might with someone who's going to be more permanently caring for your children or in your home doing your, family work. So that was something we really considered when starting up Faye, is that peer relationship was going to be helpful in managing that initial startup.
Well, what I'm hearing across the board, and Kate, sorry, just before I forget, because mom brain, is you got to do the upfront work, people. And I'm talking to myself mainly, but like, we got to do the fucking homework in the beginning to actually spend the time to know what it is you're asking for.
Yes. Yes. But I will say, like, speaking to, like, I know that you said you don't relate to the type A moms. There's a bunch of type A moms on this call.
Never met her.
We are not all that way. Like, we don't all love a good spreadsheet. I get that. Like, the reason my first hire didn't work was because she wasn't the type of nanny who was naturally would take initiative about things, who would anticipate needs. She was excellent if I gave her a to-do list of things to tackle, but that created more work for me. And I was returning to an office. I did not have the time or capacity. It was creating more work and mental load for me. And so I think, like, yes, knowing my systems, having, I've created onboarding guides and books to help people understand, like, this is how we approach certain things. But I also think it's really important to know yourself. There's a shit ton of things I didn't know about parenting or what my needs would be. And I needed someone who had enough experience and perspective to say, hey, you may want some help, or you may want to be thinking about X, Y, or Z, based on their experience, and who could, see chaos in one part of my life and say, hey, I kind of noticed that you have all of these old clothes that we could probably donate at this point. Can I go through them for you? Like, having someone who has the personality to be proactive in those ways, especially when you're like, I'm overwhelmed. I just don't know where the fuck to start. I need help.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what you think might make this better? So it's a combination of, like, knowing yourself, giving them guidance so they're set up for success. But maybe, hiring someone who can be a partner with you in that in some ways.
And that goes back to your trial period point. Because some of this stuff, like, if you ask somebody in an interview, like, how are you good at anticipating needs? They're going to be like, I'm great at that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like, you don't really know until you try it on. Now, I want to make sure we have time. Obviously, this is the back to school period. Some of us already have kids that are back in school. Maybe your kids aren't yet at school age, but the change of the seasons means often a change of activities or programming or whatever it is in your life. For you all, what are you thinking about with this back to school period? How do we make that transition a little bit easier on ourselves and our kids? Because, man, is it a shock to the system.
Calendar. That's the most important thing. Get all of those back to like they send that email and it has like 30 dates on it. And like, here are all the most important dates of the school year. And you're like, oh my gosh, I have to manually load this in. Or you can have your Faye advisor do it, but all of us are manually loading in these calendars. And that's just base one. Now you need to know when you need to have childcare for a parent teacher conference. But I don't work for Skylight, but I'll tell you, I did get a Skylight. They were delivering ads like crazy to me, and they finally got me. And what I actually like most about it is this task element of it, where the kids, you can have, like, my son has ADHD. And so the number of times that I have to say, get your socks. Remember, you need to get dressed and get your socks. It's like we do it every day, but somehow he does not remember all the stuff we do in the morning to get ready for school. And so now there's this little checklist. And then once they finish all their lists for the day, some random emoji sprinkles down and you don't know what it's going to be. And maybe it's a palm tree or like an ice cream cone. And that's like the big payoff. And that's enough for my children at this age, I guess. And so that's just been so helpful to be like, have you done your checklist? Because I don't have to sit here and say, did you turn off your sound machine? Did you open your blinds? Like, and it just became tiring to have to say those same checklists. And so now I have it digitally. So
Nice.
I'll say I don't work for Skylight. I don't get any money for it, but
Calendar / Skylight / incentivizing checklists for the routine.
Yeah.
I would say, so one other thing that both myself and Stephanie, we are certified fair play facilitators. So if you're familiar with Eve Rodsky and the fair play approach, a lot of it is ingrained in the work that each of us is doing, is just helping to lift and alleviate some of the mental load. But I think something that I think about a lot anytime, return to school, a change in season at work, in life, a move, any big changes, it's really important to just spend time yourself and with your partner thinking about what is changing in terms of responsibility and what needs to get done from more of an intentional space. Because if you're not having those intentional conversations about who owns what, you default to what you saw growing up, or what society tells us the mom should do, the dad should do, the norms. And having an intentional discussion also opens the door for what things don't matter that we can deprioritize or not care about at all, and what things should we be outsourcing, whether one of you stays at home full-time, part-time, or you're both in the workforce full-time. Everyone needs that help and support, and figuring out, if it's a college student coming by for 2 hours a week or 5 hours a week, whatever it might be, a babysitter coming over the weekend and helping with laundry, or a part-time family assistant or nanny, will vary from family to family. But I think having conversations intentionally about, like, okay, realistically, what does this season look like, and what will help us be able to thrive and feel sane during this season, is one of the best things you can do for yourself.
I like that. Kelly?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, like, there's so much stuff we can do to set up our entire family and our kids up for success. But I think, and you guys sort of touched on this, but like, don't forget to do what's best for you too, and to carve out time for yourself and do things that really like fill your bucket and bring you joy, and like, go easy on yourself. And so I would just say, like, making sure, if you have a partner and you guys want to make sure that you're like getting out on a date night, like, make sure you get that on your skylight calendar, make sure you get the support you need to go do that. And yeah, just like prioritizing yourself so that you can prioritize everyone else during the big transition.
I love that. Now, guys, I want to make sure that we have some time here at the end. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask? Because I'll keep grilling these guys till the cows come home for the next 7 minutes. I am an unending well of questions, but I want to open it up to our attendees. Is there any sticky problem you're dealing with at home in terms of trying to figure out how to manage your time, manage your kids' time, figure out how to best use support, fractional, full-time, nanny, assistant, house manager? Now's the time to kind of have some titans of industry give us their perspective. I'll give you guys a minute to type in and ask questions. I mean, one of the things, Jackie, that I think has blown my mind, because we've just started public school, and it's a totally, I mean, the number of emails and programs and deadlines and da 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 da. And like the idea, so the other day I had a really important meeting for work, and it was the same time as after school program signups for my son's school. And apparently it's like getting Taylor Swift tickets to get on the thing at exactly the time, and you're refreshing, or Backstreet Boys at the Sphere or whatever. We're refreshing. The idea that I could have said to, and my husband's doing the same at his computer downstairs. He's also on board. The idea that we could have said to somebody else, hey, can you be online at 1 p.m.? My kid does not see me at my computer refreshing. Back to the guilt question and the asking for help. Like, it's just kind of blowing my mind. I had never considered I could have actually just asked somebody else to do that.
Yep, we do that a lot. Summer day camp research is insane. Even something silly like the Christmas train, it like sells out so fast in July. And we will have advisors on there like refreshing, booking seats. And I did it last July, and I could see it live, like seats being taken. And it was like, my anxiety was so high, but I got seats for my client. And so, yeah, no, you can ask for help
Crazy.
for that, because, a lawyer's going to be in court. She can't sign up for.
And they charge for every 15 minutes of their time, those lawyers. So that's really a
They're,
valuable thing.
yeah, they can pay for someone else to spend that time refreshing.
But this is actually a good segue because Mike has asked us a great question about the financial aspect of all of this. I mean, everything we're talking about costs money. And even if you are a stay-at-home parent, you also need support and help. Like that, we have to dispel that common misconception. So if you're at the call on this call right now and you're a stay-at-home parent, you deserve and need help. You cannot do it all yourself. Okay?
Yeah.
First of all.
Yeah.
Now, there is a financial component to that, of course. So, how do you guys think about budgeting for this type of support? How should somebody think about that aspect of it?
Yeah, that's a lot of where our founder Emily's initial thought came from, was that she wanted people to be able to get the support who were double income, busy parents, but they can't afford maybe a full service. So our lowest package is 4 hours at $169 a month. It doesn't have to be always, it can be flexible. So that's where I would say if there's a busy season where $169 a month would really help you get through, we can get a lot of tasks done in that amount of time. Booking, dentist appointments and your own personal doctor appointments that you might be putting off, getting things on your calendar and just like setting you up, even if it's 1 month, that just kind of puts you a little bit forward. You've called the plumber and all of that, so I think, in a way, you don't have to think about it as a sustained cost that you're always going to do. If it's something that you just need a little bit of support right now, and then you'll get through that busy season, I think that's worth looking into as well.
It's a really good point. Kate, Kelly, for our more sort of sustained engagements, how do you think about it?
I think this is a reality that so many parents are facing, regardless of whether you're dual income or not. The cost of all forms of childcare and support are one of the biggest, if not the biggest, expenses that families are facing. And on the flip side, caretakers are severely undervalued. And, that's a much bigger public policy conversation. But I think, the way that I think about it is, no matter what type of support you may have access to, whether it is, if you have family, if you have friends that you're comfortable with, being with your child, finding ways to think through what you're comfortable with in terms of support, and prioritizing, starting small. If it starts with having a friend come over and spend an afternoon with the baby so that you can go out and have coffee with your husband once a month or whatever it might be. If it's a babysitter once a month or every other week, if it's a family assistant for 4 hours or 5 hours physically in your home. All of these things will go a long way. And, having someone who's there to take some of the lift off of you, whether it's actual childcare so that you can step away and do something that recharges your own battery, or if it's, someone coming in to take logistics off of your list, whether it's things like meal prep or laundry or tidying, organizing, donations. I think trying to figure out what your budget is, and understanding that when you talk about this as a family, that any form of care that is giving you relief is an investment in your family, in your mental health and in your physical health. And burning ourselves out and trying to do it all and never taking a break, there is more cost to that long term. So finding, small ways that may work with your budget slowly over time. And just, having those conversations with your partner. What does our budget look like, and what are we comfortable exploring with? If there's something small that you can start with in this season, start there. If it's a friend or a family member and it's not a monetary exchange, maybe there's other ways that you can approach it. But just thinking about the value for both you, your partner, and your kids as well is something important I think about anchoring too.
I love that. And I think that's a great point to end on, because really what this discussion has been about is investing in how you really want to be spending your time with your family, trying to figure out how to get the support to do the things that don't actually have a material impact on your relationship with your children or your family, so that you can be spending more time on the quality and getting people who are really good at the rest to help out. So I know that Auggie has provided links and information to all of these incredible organizations that can help you find the help that you need. I'm sure everyone on this call is DMable. If you have a follow-up question, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer. But I really appreciate the insight from Kate, Kelly, and Jackie today. And thank you all for joining us. This was wonderful.